absolutely delighted to be able to have this conversation with someone who is so well renowned, so well respected in the field of clinical psychology with an incredible expertise in hypnotherapy. So we thank you, and we're excited about the content we're going to be able to provide for folks who are tuning in and perhaps managing or trying to manage lots of stress, right? Particularly in the times that we are in. So, Dr. Q, please kind of give us the quick rundown. What's your story?
Well, I was reading your questions earlier in the week, and how I got into psychology was Mr. Chortis was my history teacher in high school, and he did an elective class on psychology. And I took that class and I thought it was so interesting. And I thought to myself, what a great way to really make a positive impact in people's lives. And that was my junior year in high school. So from a very early age, I knew what I wanted to be. And going through college and graduate school, I kind of was able to map myself out and get to my goals. So I feel really blessed to have that elective class. You never know what's going to happen in life. So always take those situations that come up and run with them.
You know, it's amazing, Dr. Q. I think of what you said about elective classes, and I think about my own journey to pursuing my doctoral studies, and it was the same exact type of setup. It was an elective class that really got me turned on to the neuroscience side of things. So yeah, that is, I think a lot of folks out there that sentiment will echo. But you're right, it is an amazing thing that psychology in general, right? That being able to dive in and being able to expose truth for people, right? Being able to help guide them to find their truth. What a gift and what a privilege to be able to serve folks that way. So you've been a practicing clinical psychologist now for what, about 12 years, 15 years?
Yeah, since 2005, I got my license.
Okay, so solid 15 years. Okay, fantastic. Now, so clinical psychology is one thing. I know you have your practice at Healthy Lifestyles Tampa Bay, right? And I certainly want to talk about that and what that means and what that looks like. But you found a niche, right? There's something in particular, right, that you're really, really good at. We know that you're very renowned for it, and that's hypnotherapy. So walk us through how you kind of got exposed to hypnotherapy, the profound difference that you think it makes, and how it kind of works.
Well, when I was in graduate school, I had a professor who actually did hypnotherapy. And that sparked my interest in it because everybody talks about the subconscious mind, but no one knows very much about it, how it works. So in my graduate studies, I was trying desperately to find someone in my school to teach me hypnosis, to allow me to have that in my toolbox. The interesting thing that I found out about was they weren't interested in hypnosis. And it wasn't until later I found out why, because hypnosis is so effective. What I'm able to do with hypnosis, it would take months, sometimes years to do with traditional psychotherapy. When we think of the mind, we think of it on three levels. The conscious mind, which is what you're using every day. It's your waking mind, it's your day-to-day working mind. But underneath that is what's called the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is what is actively running our bodies. You know, we don't wake up in the morning and go, okay, I got to breathe. Okay, I got to run my liver. Okay, I got to make sure this hormone's regulated. That is all done by the subconscious mind. So in reality, the subconscious mind is actually running 80 or 90% of our lives. Because let's face it, if we were really in control of our lives mentally, our lives would be completely different. We'd be meeting all our goals. We would have just anything that we wanted that we could think of, but that's not usually the case. And what I find is with that subconscious mind, if there's things that have been implanted in our subconscious mind at an early age, those things can hinder us throughout life. How we deal with stress, how we deal with our relationships, how we deal with our addictions. All of those things are affected on the subconscious mind. Now, the interesting thing too is between the conscious and the subconscious mind, there's something called the critical faculty or critical factor. It's basically a gatekeeper. So it lets information in and out of the subconscious. When we're born between the 0 and 12 years of age, that barrier is not there. So everything that we are introduced to, everything that we're exposed to in our young lives goes right into our subconscious, good, bad, and indifferent. This is where our morals are developed, our connection with others, how we view the world, how we view ourselves. And so it's very interesting that in those early years, if you don't have a good, solid foundation, which unfortunately, a lot of people don't get, it can really affect us on the subconscious level that we carry through the rest of our lives. And I could give you numerous examples of that, but it's really the foundation of who we are is on the subconscious level.
So it's interesting you mentioned the subconscious and then early childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us to see effectiveness, one of the things that's at the tip of our spear is, we talk about mental models, right? Things that models certain types of neural circuitry that's been ingrained at a very young age, and just a belief, a way of looking at something, a funnel of sorts of how the world works and why this is happening to me, that sort of thing. It's hard to break that. I mean, to make the conscious decision, right, that I'm going to change this mental model, it's very difficult, right? And so it sounds like hypnotherapy is a way to get right to the heart of that matter at the subconscious level. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, absolutely. When I kind of use the analogy of your mind and your subconscious mind, when we're young, we get programmed, if you will. So let's say mom was a yeller. Whenever she needed something done or was frustrated, she'd yell and people would get things done, right? Subconsciously, we learn that behavior from her. So as we get older, we develop that behavior as part of who we are. You may have met people that are just called hotheads, right?
Right.
And that's just a way to control people. Right. So under hypnosis, what we do is we neutralize that program, like a bad program on a computer. So whenever you get frustrated, you go to anger, or anytime you want something done, you get angry. We neutralize that and we add a new suggestion on the subconscious that for example, one of the suggestions could be, when I need to get something done, I say it in a clear and concise way so others hear me. And that's it. Once you implement that on the subconscious, your subconscious mind now stops doing the old way of behaving with the anger, and it's now running on the new way. So people find that they can lose these old habits, these old traits very quickly by using hypnosis. And you're right, you go right to the core, right to the issue, and you neutralize that. Even people that have suffered, traumatic events in their life, rape, incest, being almost killed or, having their lives threatened, you can't unfortunately erase the memory of it, but you can erase the emotional connection to the memory. So when I'm working with people that have been abused in those ways, a lot of times when they come out of hypnosis and I ask them, okay, think about that event, they say things like, gosh, it's almost like I'm reading about it happening to someone else now, because they don't have that emotional connection to it. So that's how people are able to move so much quicker through therapy, because you're getting to the root of the issue and you're making the change there or neutralizing the emotional connection.
I think it is so profound what you just said, right? So being able to read it like a script, like it's happening to somebody else, but the emotional connection is not there anymore. And I think when we go back, and I think in my own tenure from a research perspective, I did a lot of work with individuals who were in the military and PTSD. It's the emotional side, the feeling of loss, the feeling of failure, not serving their comrades the way they should have, or not being there when they felt that they should have. That feeling is what keeps them down. It keeps them from being able to push forward and let it go. So it's an incredible thing, because when you think of all the other behavioral modalities that exist from a therapeutic perspective, this is something that it very much shortens the curve, right? It bridges the gap a lot faster in order to be that much more effective in your own development and your perspective of how it is you view life and how to be and perform at an optimal level, right, in life. And I think that is 110% something that every single person, because I know everybody has things, right, that we have to work through. We have, old mental models, things that exist that we don't even recognize, we don't even realize. So this is really, really helpful. So Dr. Q, let me ask you, crazy times we're in right now, right? Everything going on with COVID-19, global crisis. Is hypnotherapy something that can be effective and useful for folks who are having a hard time with this current situation?
Yeah, a lot of people that I see in my practice are actually dealing with chronic anxiety. And through hypnosis, we're able to just eliminate that anxiety completely so that they can go on with their day-to-day and just feel comfortable and feel secure and feel alleviated of that stress and that anxiety. So hypnosis is definitely something that can help with that. I wanted to back up. We talked about kind of the curve of how our society has changed. One of the things that I find is so exciting nowadays is the stigma of mental health is finally starting to be eroded away.
Absolutely.
I mean, for years, people have lived in misery and have lived in this prison in their own mind because they were afraid to get help. People saw it as a weakness, or they saw it as, oh, I'm going to be crazy, or, something else is going to happen to me. They don't realize that this is a tool to help them live the life that every day they get up and struggle so hard for.
Right.
But if you're doing it out here and you're not doing it here, you're losing half the battle. And it's so much easier to do it here because everything you do here is reflected out in your life. And so I encourage people to find help, to get that help they need, because everybody knows, like you said, we've all had stuff happen to us. No one escapes their childhood unscathed. And so when you get the help that you need to go and repair and actually neutralize those connections, your life is changed forever. And that's the great thing about hypnosis is once those suggestions are made, they're permanent. You don't go back. You don't backslide because you're making that change on the subconscious mind, which, like we talked about earlier, controls everything.
Absolutely. It's really interesting, Dr. Q, because when I think about what you're saying, and goodness gracious, we here at CEO Effectiveness, we deal with executive C-suite folks all over the country. And, you think of how many times individuals seek opinions and feedback and guidance from third-party professionals in their life, right? Mm-hmm. Attorneys, doctors, CPAs, right? These are all folks who have a niche expertise, right? We have no problem picking up the phone and saying, hey, I have a problem. What do you think I should do? Or what's the best way to handle this, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about breaking that stigma of behavioral health and what it means for mental health, right? Yeah. It should be no different. It should really, right? It's no different, right? It's being able to rely on someone who is seasoned, who is trained, who is a professional in what they do, and they can provide that guidance for you. So I do agree with you. There's certainly been some barriers broken here in recent years, and it's a great thing because more folks need access to good quality practitioners and therapists who know what they're doing, just like you. So I couldn't agree with you more. So Dr. Q, when we think about stress, so stress is one thing, being able to mitigate stress, being able to make sense of it and let it go. What are some other areas that you find in your practice that you see a lot of? What are some things that hypnotherapy is very effective and useful for targeting? Because, for our listeners who are out there, I am sure, to your point, no one escapes, right, the scars and the bruises of their childhood. So we all have stuff, right? So what are some other common things that you see that you help?
One of the most common things I do see, and especially in my practice at Healthy Lifestyles Tampa Bay, is emotional eating. Mm. There's a big connection between trying to self-medicate through food or alcohol or drugs and all these other things. And what it is actually, it's the subconscious mind trying to help us. So I think of anxiety, depression, and all these other things that people struggle with a little bit differently. I see them as not a negative, but a maladaptive behavior, if you will, that we've started or developed that is there to help us, because the subconscious mind is geared towards helping us live and survive this world. That's all it does. And sometimes it does it in, like I said, a maladaptive way. So emotional eating is big. People get stressed out, or they're eating at night, or they're eating at hours. And, you know, unfortunately, people don't necessarily emotionally eat on carrots and kale and things that are good for you. You know, we're going for the sweets and the ice cream and things like this, the go-to, you know, to make ourselves feel better. And sometimes that stuff comes from our childhood too. I had one person, when she came home from school, she would go to her grandma's house, and when she had a bad day, her grandma would give her ice cream, and she said, "Here, honey, ice cream makes everything better."
Yeah.
So she grew up with an ice cream addiction. Every time life wasn't treating her fairly, which unfortunately life treats us that way more times than not, she was eating ice cream and gaining weight. And that repercussion of, you know, grandma was just trying to help her, bless her heart, but the repercussion was, you know, diabetes and health issues and not living the life that she truly wants because of that belief. So things like that are what I focus on. So the great thing about what I do in my practice as a clinical psychologist, I'm really good at interviewing, getting to the root of the issue, and then using the hypnosis as a tool to neutralize that issue. And the thing that's really great about hypnosis too, unlike traditional psychotherapy where you have to go by detail, you know, tell me what happened, how'd that make you feel, and then what, you know, where you're basically re-traumatizing the person, especially if it's a horrific thing, week after week, having them talk about it. With hypnosis, by going in and neutralizing the emotional connection, you don't have to know the details of it. You can do that without re-traumatizing the person, which I find to be so effective and so much more beneficial for the person. Because I get people calling me all the time. I've been in therapy for 10, 20 years trying to deal with this problem that happened when I was 12 and not getting anywhere. Because people are all focused on the conscious mind and they're ignoring the subconscious mind, or trying to go through the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, which is a daunting task.
Absolutely.
With hypnosis, it just naturally opens up the subconscious. And by the way, the thing I tell people is we hypnotize or become hypnotized every day in our lives. A daydream is a hypnotic trance. If you've driven somewhere and you've gotten there, you're like, well, gosh, I don't remember turning left on first. You're kind of on autopilot. So we go in and out of these trances, getting lost in a good book or a movie. So our minds are already programmed to go into these hypnotic trances. And all I do is help facilitate something that the person already does. And the greatest thing about it is, in order for it to work, the person just has to want it to work. And that's it. And it's very relaxing. It's very calming. It's a whole experience, so much different than just traditional psychotherapy.
It's amazing to me. You said a key phrase there. So be on autopilot, right? How many things in our life are on autopilot, right? It's like, we know it's going to happen. It's to be expected. I mean, breathing, for example, getting up, walking. I mean, all these things, right, that we do to survive, right, as part of what we need to do, but we never think about how we're doing it. Right. And we never think about and getting to things. So what are those connected to at a much deeper level that has symbolic meaning to me in my life, but perhaps I just don't recognize it? Or if it's something like trauma that we try to keep tucked away and layered on top of stuff, being able to peel those pieces back. To your point, you know, when you're going through an interview style, right, with someone who's a professional, and you're having to relive those traumatic events, you're having to relive that trauma, that stress. That in of itself can be a heck of a thing to have to go through, especially if you're verbalizing and listening to what's happening in addition to the images that you're seeing play out in your mind when you're doing so. So this is fantastic. So Dr. Q, you know, COVID-19, everyone's quarantining, and I know that, you know, we're slowly but surely, you know, figuring out how to come out of this thing. Mm-hmm. But is hypnotherapy effective remotely, right? So doing what you and I are doing right now, is it something that works for folks who can't see you face to face?
Yeah, absolutely. Since we've had this situation, I've been actually seeing my patients remotely through Zoom and other mediums, and having great success with hypnosis. And again, the person just has to want it to work. A meditation is a form of hypnosis. A lot of people do meditative states and exercises like that. So people are already predisposed to doing it. And doing it over the internet is, it's a little different than one-on-one. It's not my preference, of course, but it's effective, and I'm having good success with it, and people are getting a lot out of it, because and that's the thing, after each session, we talk about the session. What was it like? How was it going into trance? And so people that I've worked with and new people, I ask them those same questions, and each one of them come back and go, yeah, it was good. I felt myself going into the trance. I felt myself deepening as we go further into it. So for everyone that has done it with me, I've had great success with it.
So Dr. Q, let me ask you, is there anything dangerous about hypnotherapy?
That's the interesting thing. No, there isn't. I haven't found anything yet. And a lot of people, and unfortunately, the way that the media is and people's exposure to hypnosis, you go to a comedy club, you see these people barking like dogs and doing all this crazy stuff. And yes, in an audience, you're thinking, my gosh, the guy took over their mind. But here's the reality. Number one, when you want hypnosis to be over, you just open your eyes and it's done. So the person is always ultimately in control. Right. Number two, there's no way that a hypnotherapist can have someone do something that they wouldn't normally do or want to do, or that they are morally against. So I can't say, you're going to wake up and go down the street and rob a bank. It's just not happening. So unfortunately, those experiences on the movies, the hypnotherapist is always manipulating people to murder people or do something other bizarre thing, or the exposure people see in those environments where it's just purely entertainment. But every one of those people that are on the stage wants to be there. They want to follow the suggestion, and that's what makes them do it. It's their own free will that's doing it. It's just the hypnotherapist that's allowing them to get into a state of trance where they feel free and open to do that. And so when I'm working with someone, we're very clued into what the person wants to do and change, because those are the things that are going to be more salient in the hypnotic trance. So we have I usually do a very long educational piece in the first session, and then I ask the person, bring back 3 things, not that you want to work on. I'm done with working on things, because in psychology, when you say working on, you're talking weeks and months. And I'm done with that. I ask, what 3 things do you want to be done and over with when you leave this next session? And that's what we focus on. And that's the mindset, not to work on, but to finish.
Yes.
And the success rate that I've had is been incredible. Now, the downside is people need less therapy. So that means I need to get out and hustle more so that I get more clients coming in. But the beauty of it is I'm actually doing, with hypnosis and being trained as a psychologist, the dream I've always wanted to do was help people. And I just found a different tool that's been able to do it in a much quicker way.
Yeah, I think it's so profound for you to be able to get directly to the heart of the subconscious, be able to tackle, right, what those issues are, and the difference between what do you want to work on and what do you want to be finished with. Yeah. That is a huge distinction that I think a lot of people need to know. One of the things that we use here at CEO Effectiveness, we say, so the quality of your relationship with yourself is the upper limit of the quality relationship you can have with anyone else, right? And so getting to know yourself, right? Being able to peel those layers back, the whys, the hows, getting into that subconscious and being finished with certain habits that are holding you back from being able to reach your greatest potential is something that very much goes in line with a lot of the principles that we push forward. So, it's one thing to have that stress, that chaos internally with yourself, but then there's also an effect that has with your relationship with others.
Yeah.
So for folks who own a company, or for folks who have family members they don't have good relationships with, there's much more to that, right? Than just saying, oh, that's just how they are, and it's not going to change, or that's just how I am, I'm not going to change. It's not necessarily true, right? So
if you want to change, you can change.
Yes.
You have to want that and see it as value, because without value, people aren't going to do it.
Absolutely. So Dr. Q, the people want to know, are you taking new clients?
Yeah, we are actually taking new clients in this. I've been actually getting 2 or 3 clients a day. The bad thing about something like the corona is psychologists get busy.
Mm-hmm.
Things go bad, no one wants to see needs a psychologist as much when things are great, but when things are bad, we're on the front line. So we're taking patients and getting not only doing hypnotherapy, but also the hypnosis with it too.
Fantastic. So Dr. Q, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Actually, I'm probably one of the few doctors that you can call me directly on my cell phone. So you call my number, 727-906-6185. And we also have Healthy Lifestyles Tampa Bay. You can get a hold of me through there. And again, I give my phone number out to people because I want that connection with people. I want people to know that they can call and get not an answering service, but actually get the person that they need to talk to.
Yeah. And that's such a rarity nowadays. That's an incredible thing you do. Folks, so those of you tuning in, you'll see in the webinar chat, I've put Dr. Q's full name as well as his direct email address. So by all means, as he said, you are welcome to get a hold of him via that medium, or call him at his cell phone that he just provided for everybody. So Dr. Q, if you wouldn't mind, provide your cell phone number one more time.
My phone number is 727-906-6185. And we're located in North St. Pete. So we're right over the bridge from Tampa and downtown St. Pete. So we're pretty centrally located.
Outstanding. Dr. Q, cannot thank you enough for your time, your professionalism, your insight, your wisdom. Really enjoyed this conversation, and looking forward to being in touch for many more to come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. We'll be in touch.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.